That's me.
Hello.
Oh, wow. We're working.
Yes, we're here. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, very well, thank you. Thanks
Oh,
for
nice.
inviting me.
That's all right. Good to see you again. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has, yes, yes. Are you still home or are you
Yes, at
in?
home at the moment, yeah. So it's just
Yeah,
all using all the technology we possibly can.
fantastic.
Good stuff.
I found a quiet cupboard in Ergo to to have a call from. So
Oh, you've done well to find a quiet cupboard then at Ergo, haven't you?
yeah, yeah, it's pretty
Absolutely.
busy again here. Yeah, it's nice to see people though.
Oh, good. And do you know what is nice? I know, before we get going, but
Yeah.
there's new buildings being built, like an Ergo, that
Oh
have
yeah,
been spread all over. So it just proves that businesses are still operating fairly well and,
yeah.
still getting out there and doing bits and pieces, needing office space rather than working from home. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, yeah, they're having one very similar in Gaul, aren't they? Called
They are,
Rain. Yeah, which looks
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
So
it's almost finished as well, I think.
yeah, yeah, it's come up so quickly, hasn't it? It's amazing with these new buildings.
That's it. Just overnight, aren't they? Overnight successes. Oh, super. Well, thank you for joining us on our Velocity Academy Business Podcast. It's really nice to have you. And
Lovely to be here.
and do you know what? It's been nice as well because obviously I know yourself and I know Luke and I know the business. It's been nice to sort of see how things have changed for you. So when I first met Luke, going back probably 2 and a bit years now,
Yeah,
it was very much. It felt like his toy. It felt like his hobby. That
ah!
he loves this stuff. But now with everything that's going on, it's massive, isn't it? It's massive.
Yeah.
Do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown on the history and sort of where it's come about and how it's sort of evolved?
Definitely. Yeah. So, yeah, Luke started the company as a sole trader, basically, as an animator. That was his profession. He had some specialisms around sort of the medical area and pensions. So, he was focused very much on that. So it was very much one man working from home and building the business like that. But over the first couple of years, he became so busy, he was working sort of with a network of other freelancers as well to try and deliver some larger projects. And eventually it just grew to a stage where he needed support, really, the types of projects he was getting in and the jobs that he was being referred on to do. He needed more support. So I joined the business in 2018, and so did Chris, who's our head of development. So for a little while, it was just the three of us, but we've just had our 5th birthday and it's grown from us three to a team of 11 now. So we've got a mix of developers, animators, designers and account managers. And it's been great, actually, based in the Ergo building, because we moved in here, I think it was towards the end of 2018, and into a really small office on the ground floor. And we've moved 3 times as the business has grown. So, and it's a lot easier because it's easy in, easy out. You can just be 1 month in one office, and then if it's available, you can move on to the next one as and when you need to. So it's a great flexible place to work from for a business like ours. But yeah, we deliver all sorts of things. So we deliver animations, as I've mentioned, but also websites, portals, apps, games, VR and AR, so augmented reality and virtual reality, all sorts of things, really. The list goes on, but also your sort of generic, print and various things, that the ancillary stuff that goes with it. But yeah, so we've got our fingers in lots of pots. But basically, our specialism is these sort of cutting edge technologies mixed with really great artwork, basically really lovely visuals.
Yeah, I've seen some of the bits and pieces that have been done, obviously, like on LinkedIn and things like that, and it's just it blows my mind what can be done. And I suppose it is, if your mind's busy enough and active enough and creative enough, anything's possible, I suppose, isn't it, nowadays? Certainly with the technology that we've got.
That's it. And that's what's lovely, because the team are so creative and they're always wanting to push the boundaries and not do things in the usual way. So if we're going to put in, you know, a proposal or a pitch for something. We want to be different to the other things that are going to be going forward, and we want to suggest things which are making the most out of all those different technologies that are available to us. And there's a real sense of not being scared to try something new, to always push the boundaries, and that is very much the ethos of Clay10, something that Luke instilled in it from the beginning, really, and is, you know, through with everybody in the team.
Yeah, and I suppose that's when it comes to sort of the people that you bring on board, it's creating that. Because one of the things really I find interesting, and obviously we're working through with our apprentices, is that we talk a lot about culture,
yeah,
and how you create a culture, and how you kind of obviously ingrain that within obviously the staff that come in.
Yeah.
And you seem to obviously create creativity, and that sort of mindset has to be a specific culture, I suppose, doesn't it? But how do you keep that going? How do you sort of maintain that creativity element, that, and sort of as you get the new staff come in, how do you kind of get them to buy into it? Because you've got a very relaxed culture, haven't you? I know that you've got a very much we've got a job and it needs to be done.
Yeah,
it is very much.
We're all very busy and we're all, you know, cracking on, but it is a really, you know, super friendly, relaxed environment. There are still, I mean, 11 is still a pretty small company. We're all in one room together, and there is a feel of we get a new project in and everybody's opinion counts. So everyone can chip in. We've got kind of a meeting table in the center of the office. So sometimes it might just be key people who have been invited into that meeting. But if you over here and you've got a thought, you just stand up and you share it, and that is just absolutely encouraged. You know, I mean, I'm not part of the creative team. I generally deal on the account management side or looking after the admin, HR, all of those sorts of things. But if I've got a creative idea, you know, I'm more than welcome to pitch that and put it forward, and, you know, as is everybody else in the team. So there is that really nice sort of feel of, you know, so everyone, this is the brief, what are our thoughts, and then everyone just chips in and we whittle it down from there. Yeah. So yeah, it's just keeping all of that open. Everybody's got a voice, I suppose, in the team.
The good thing about that, I suppose, is that obviously the creative people, you look for them for your inspiration and things. Yeah. But then it's the other people that support that team that might just have had an idea or just seen something. And like you said, it might just be a little bit left field.
Yeah.
But actually, then you kind of give them the ball to run with it then, don't you?
Absolutely. And it is important to have a mix. So, you know, we've got really technical people and really artistic people, and then maybe more practically minded people. So some of these ideas you think, well, that's great, but in practice, you know, as somebody who's going to use that, how would this, you know, work in reality? And, you know, that sounds like that might be different, you know, difficult to use or whatever. You know, you can challenge each other in that way because everybody's got that slightly different perspective. Whereas I guess if you had a room full of just creatives, you might have some kind of crazy wacky ideas that, you know, actually couldn't possibly be programmed or delivered. So I have a lovely mix.
I have no doubt that all these crazy wacky ideas that you come up with would still you'd manage it in some way, form.
A lot of the time I've been like, they're not going to manage that. They're not. So I'm like, well, yeah.
They get it done. Interestingly, you talk about like the projects and things that come in. So again, our apprenticeships, we have business apprenticeships and we have digital apprenticeships as well. And part of their brief for their end assessment things is sort of project management or project process changes and things.
Yeah.
How would you take a project from sort of start to finish? So you say you have your brief there at your table, so that comes in, you have your discussions between everybody. How does that look between that first initial meeting to sort of meeting back with the client and saying, there you go, how do you like that? Is that all right for you?
Yeah, well, so it can depend where it's come from. So whether sometimes you have a very formal process where it's a tender and you might literally just get your brief and there's very little contact with the client. So you can maybe submit some questions which have to be shared with everyone, you know, as part of the tender process. So you can have a very formal approach to that side of things. But often our clients are people, you know, companies that have been referred to us and have asked to work with us. So they've approached us and said, oh, we really want to do an animation for this or whatever, or a website for this, you know, can we have a chat and da da da, and it builds from there really, and you're not necessarily in a formal competitive situation. What I would say with almost any of them, really, it's about pinning down the spec and having a really, really detailed specification. So before you start any project, just make sure that both sides are fully signed up to what is within that spec, what the client is expecting to receive, what we know we can provide. And so that is all actually written down in the specification document. So particularly for websites where it's quite technical, that should all be laid out and planned out very early on, sort of within that process, after you've been sort of taken on and various things. So the specification is important, because that comes into its own later down the road, once you get, issues maybe around change control and things like that. So if you're delivering a project and the client has asked for something else, something new to be added to it, because you've got that specification which is agreed what you're going to deliver, you've got a platform there from which you can say, okay, yeah, this is something we can do. It's outside the initial scope. It perhaps might take a bit more time, so it's going to adjust the schedule that we put together for them. So how that's going to impact on timescales, but then also how that might impact on budgets. But you can't have those clear-cut conversations unless you have something at the beginning that is a real clear defined, because they might say, oh, well, we just always assumed that was going to be part of it, that when we agreed the cost, that we just felt that should be part of it. So that, I would say, is really important if you're planning any kind of project. Once you've sort of been taken on and you are pinning down the details, get a really good specification in place, and that will take you all the way through, really be like your Bible for delivering the project, basically.
Yeah, I suppose when you've got that, you've got that nailed right at the very start, then your planning process becomes very much a lot more simpler, doesn't it? Because you're always referring back to that initial project brief, aren't you?
Exactly. And sometimes their project briefs are almost a spec document in themselves. Some are so detailed. Others are, a brief might be 2 lines in an email. And so you've got quite a lot more work to do to build that out, to really understand what the expectations are and what you're going to have.
And I suppose they're coming to you as creative people, aren't they? Be creative. Let's not, sort of just streamline you too much. Let's use what your skills are and go, right, there you go, be off with you and do what we need you to.
Yeah. I mean, so to go back a stage, often what we might do is put forward maybe 3 options. So in terms of creative approaches, when it's quite wide and they haven't been too specific over what they want to receive, we can have one of those meetings. We can, brainstorm and come up with all these ideas. And then we might produce sort of 3 creative options, which would include sketches and descriptions and ideas. And then we present that to the client, and they might go for one, or they might go for a combination of a couple. But it gives you that initial building block to start from, to, move on from there. But yeah, it's often not just this is our idea and that's what we present. We'll often give them some choices, really, so that we can get a sense of
that's good, because I suppose you don't want to get to the very end and then that's when they say, can you just add this in, or can you just add this in? Is it about keeping the client involved all the way through?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we like to look at it as a partnership with the client. So, they're the specialist in terms of their products or services. They'll always know them better than we will. So it's absolutely important that they stay with us all the way through that journey. So, we will, in terms of the scheduling, we will put in key milestone dates of when we're going to feed back and when we're going to request feedback from them. And so that's sort of all agreed fairly early on. But often, especially with a longer term project, we will take quite an iterative approach. So we won't go too far down any line before we're sending things back to them, and understanding that these are early stages. But, we will have maybe a staging site for a website that we share with them, and we will push various versions as we're moving along and developing it, so that the client can keep going in there, seeing where we're up to, feeding back. Often we might book in a weekly update meeting with the clients, so that whatever's happening, we just have that little touch base and we can let them know where we're up to and what's happening. Sometimes, I mean, it's totally dependent on the project. Sometimes a client will give us such a short time scale. It really is a case of all that planning work at the beginning and kind of getting that detail down, and then they have to kind of trust in us, and then our delivering, we're just heads down producing. And with animation particularly, you often then have to send things to render, which can take hours and days depending on how detailed it is. So once that's sent to render, it's like, you know, it's there. It's almost like you could run out of time if you don't, you know, build that into the process. So we might send low res versions of the animation first off for them to check, and then we'll make the edits, and it's only then we'll push it to render, so you get the high quality version at the end. In an ideal world, we don't work like that. That's usually just when, you know, timescales push you to it. In an ideal world, we would have the kind of stages. Is it worth me running through the kind of stages we might do for an animation?
Absolutely, yeah. This is really, really interesting stuff. Just...
I don't want to bore you.
No, I'm on the edge of my seat.
So say we might first of all agree the script. So drafts of that will go back and forth. So once the script's signed off, then we move on to storyboarding. So we might have a written storyboard where we're describing what's happening. And then once that is signed off, we'll illustrate all of that storyboard so that they can see it then as an illustrative version with drawings so that you can see what's going to be happening. Once that's signed off, we might then put together a visual. So if it's, say, a 3D animation, we would create one, either a short snippet of a scene or a visual, so they can actually get the look and feel of the animation. And then when that's signed off, then we start to go into first draft, and then we're sort of sending through iterative versions of, you know, first, second and third draft, and building up from there. So that's just if it was an animation, a kind of a workflow we might go through. But as you can see, we're signing things off at each stage, because if they haven't signed off the storyboard and we start animating, it's an awful lot more work for us to undo that and go back and then redo parts of the animation. So as much as possible, we're pinning that all down really early on.
So something else we talk a lot about is effectiveness and efficiency. And I suppose that's all part of that process, and it's making sure that to be efficient, you've got to make sure that them 4 major stages there are effective and between you and your client. Interestingly, you know, when you're thinking of designing something, so you've obviously got a client in mind, you're working with a client, but you have to also keep in mind who their clients or customers are as well, because obviously it's got to work. They might have an idea, like I said a bit before, about, oh, this is what I think what we want, but is it actually on face value suitable for what you need it to do?
Yes, absolutely.
To manage everything there, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about sort of who the target market is for them, and understanding them and how they're going to access that, you know, piece, whatever it might be. As an example, we had one client come to us who was asking for a booklet, like a training booklet for their volunteers, and it was about training them to use an app. And so our question to them was, so they're going to be downloading an app and using it on their phone, rather than giving them a physical booklet, would it not be better to have, you know, a website that they could access that through? You could continually update it. You know, once something's printed, as you know, it can go out of date so easily, and then you've got all the reprinting and all of that. A website you can constantly update. So if you're talking about targeting people who are going to be comfortable with, you know, using smartphones and accessing apps, you know, why not build a website that's going to support that? You can have the link directly to the app to download. You can have all the stages for how to use it and what to do on that website. And so it's that sort of thing. So although the client requested one thing, we're quite happy to go back and suggest something else if we think that's going to work better.
Do you find them conversations can be quite difficult with certain clients? I mean, we're not going to name and shame.
No, never. Some can be really challenging, and I suppose you can only push things so far, but we do see that as our job to challenge where we need to, because at the end of the day, we want the best for that client, and we want them to get the most out of the money that they're investing in this piece. So if we, hand on heart, don't think they're going to get the best investment out of what they're doing, and doing something different is going to be better, we'll always say. And, you know, we'll say that honestly. You know, Luke, you've met Luke, he's pretty good at, you know, putting these things forward and saying what his opinions are on things, but always in a way that is coming from a good place, not trying to control, or and you have to respect as well the fact, as I said before, usually the client knows their service, knows their products, all of those things. I mean, we are specialists in designing these things, and that we have got marketing experience, so we can bring that to the table and challenge certain things, but they'll know their audience as well, so you have to keep that in mind and respect that. But definitely, you know, if something doesn't quite sit and you think they're going to get more out of going down a different route, yes, we would raise that every time.
It's standing by your values as well, isn't it, as a company, and your good ethics that you deliver. And sometimes I suppose it's to a point maybe where a job comes in and it's just not quite right for you. To hold by them values and say it's just not going to be us that's going to do this work this time. I suppose they're the more difficult conversations, aren't they? But if they're your own values, then I suppose they are difficult, aren't they? I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'll take an example of there are, you know, there's a popular sort of style of animation, which is sort of like a line drawing type of a thing, which you can get, and you can go online and use websites and find, you know, animators and illustrators who'll do those sorts of things, you know, fairly simply, and it's almost a click of a button kind of an animation, and it's just not what we do. We do really bespoke, beautiful animations, and in a way we couldn't even compete, because we couldn't charge as low as some of these other places would. And so we would always say, if that's really what you want and you don't want us to suggest anything else, really go to some of these other places. And it's similar with some of the website stuff as well. Some really simple websites, you can get great little simple websites, you know, online. You can build them yourselves, all of those things. What we specialize in is if there's elements to it, like support or e-commerce, or, you know, all of those sorts of things, a calculator or something, or some really beautiful 3D bespoke animation. If there's something like that, we're your people. If it's not, we won't hesitate to say that's probably not for us. You know, we're probably not the right people to come to. It's not going to be best value for you, and it's just not the kind of work that we do. So, you know, that I think that's fair enough. It's staying.
I think that's important for any business, in it, certainly business owners, to actually go, look, we don't want to just do something for the sake of doing it, and like say, if it's not quite right, it's not quite right. I've got one more question for you first. One more. Where do you sort of get your customers from? So where do you, I know you said a little bit about a lot of clients come to you, but how would they find you? How would they, you know, if they Googled you and AR, VR, are you up there? Or, you know, where would they find the Clay10 that we know and love?
Yeah, in terms of like your SEO, it's tricky, you know, and we have run ads and things like that before in the past to sort of see if that helps, you know, to get some more sort of referrals that way. Generally, locally, we do pretty well. So if you were to put in Hull animation or Hull VR AR, we're going to be on the first page of Google. But nationally, you know, it's very competitive. It's very difficult to get, you know, up in the listings. So yes, our website is really useful and it has brought work in, particularly from a local base. But yes, it is a great deal of referrals. It is targeting maybe events. So it's really nice that the sort of conference world is opening up again, and we can get back out there, you know, and get a bit of a presence to kind of target the different types of businesses that we want to connect with. So if we're trying to, I don't know. So recently, last week, we went to the Pension Managers Conference in Torquay, and because we've got a lot of experience, in terms of pensions comms within the business. So it was a really good fit for us, an opportunity for us to go and meet other sort of people within the pensions industry and tell them about what we do. So that was a very good sort of targeted event that we could go and have a presence at and meet people and that sort of thing, build relationships. Generally, these things do take a bit of time and they are slow burners when they're brand new clients. It can be you meet them at an event like that, you connect with them on LinkedIn, you know, share back and forth a couple of emails over time, you know, then we might send them something at Christmas. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. And then maybe after the 7th touch base, they'll say, oh, something's come up and, you know, I thought of you and da, da, da. And then it builds from there. But it,
Yeah.
you know, it can be a real slow burner, and you know, it's just about using all of those channels. So we do use social media, we do use LinkedIn and various things, but yeah, it's probably the majority is word of mouth, I would say.
I think that's a really good business tip, though. You know, you don't have to go in straight away at day one and do the hard sell. You just let people know that you're there, what you do, and when the time's right, if what you're offering is what they want, they'll find you. And just like you said, them touch points, the email here, a little box of biscuits at Christmas, something like that, or a little game. There's a game that I think Luke did.
We
like
did roll on Christmas, with our pudding.
I remember seeing that. So that's really, really good. I mean, I've found this really, really useful for me, but also I'm certainly going to ask our apprentices to sort of have a look through this, because I think it'll be really valuable to them, because like I said, they've got project planning to do. Just taking in a few of the little bits that you've said will really, really help them. And I think it's understanding that business is a big thing. You know, certainly even from an administrator point of view, it's not just about that, you know, filing systems and answering telephones anymore. If you understand the business, then you understand why things happen. And that's what I try and get across, is that it's the whys and the hows, and sort of, you know, the things it has on for that. But I really appreciate your time. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much for this, and I'll certainly make sure that you get a copy across.
Oh, thank you.
You can play it in the office.
Maybe not.
Is this a busy time for you? Do you have busy times? Is this?
Yeah, this is. Yeah, we tend to have quite a busy run up to Christmas. Right. Yeah, it is. It's sort of from September. Everyone wakes up after the summer holidays, and then it's a big push up to Christmas. So
I suppose, did the pandemic then? Because obviously a lot of people's sort of marketing dropped a touch, didn't it, when everything closed? But then people went online, did a little bit more with websites and social media and things like that. So did you sort of find you picked up a little bit then?
We did. It was strange. So at the very beginning of the lockdown, it was, you know, we had a few clients who had to freeze their budgets, basically. So some projects were, you know, and so we had that sort of moment where we're like, oh, is this going to hit us? But then a week or two later, and then we're getting contacted by not only current clients, but new clients who are saying, we've got this budget, we usually spend it going to these events or, you know, delivering XYZ. We can't do that, so we really need a better online presence. And so all of that picked up from there, and we got various, you know, animations and websites and all sorts. So
it's a positive from a negative, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And we're lucky that we're in an industry as well where we can work from home. You know, we were able to send everyone home and keep them safe, but still keep the business going. So it was...
Well, I could sit here and talk all day, but I'm really busy. But thank you very much for your time. It's been really, really good. Like I said, our apprentices will get a lot from this, so I really appreciate it.
That's great. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much. I'll see if I can stop this and exit it. I don't really know. If I just leave the studio, that way.